The National Desk, America's News Now.
The sound homeowners heard in a Pittsburgh neighborhood for hours. What we know about the shooter investigation. GOP candidates take the stage in the first debate of the primary season despite the focus on who isn't there.
I'm convinced we can't win with Donald Trump, and that's the whole purpose of this debate.
Once upon a time, he was America's mayor. Today, he was in custody in Fulton County, Georgia.
Turned out. They're lying. I'm telling the truth.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Breaking news out of Pittsburgh in an hours-long standoff with an active shooter, which has come to an end. Within the last hour, the shooter has been killed, but this is what it sounded like throughout the day. Hundreds of shots were fired after officers attempted to serve an eviction notice to a home in the neighborhood. The barricaded man has shot down at least 2 police drones before law enforcement fired tear gas at the suspect this afternoon. Homes in the area have been evacuated, and at one point, police on scene reportedly had to request additional ammo. As far as we know, outside of the shooter, there was no one directly injured other than minor injuries from broken glass. The heat rages on. Over 100 million people are under heat alerts today as an extremely dangerous heat dome lingers, stretching from the Midwest to the Gulf Coast. And when we talk about a heat dome, we're talking about a dome of high pressure that really traps that heat and air. Excessive heat warnings, watches and advisories in effect over 17 states from Minnesota to Louisiana. And when you look at the central U.S., you're seeing temps in the upper 90s and also into the triple digits. Here's a look at some of the highs. Chicago at 96, and then you have Omaha at 102. As a result, we're seeing school districts across the U.S. make big changes early on in the school year, canceling classes, sporting events, outdoor activities, or at least dismissing school early. The National Weather Service reports the searing heat wave will continue through the end of the week. More than a half dozen Republicans who are trying to knock Donald Trump from the party's top spot in the race for the White House will take to the stage tonight in Wisconsin. It's the first presidential debate, one that Trump has decided not to attend. So does this open a door for another candidate to stroll through and change the tone of the race? Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman reports.
Yeah, Amira, it could very well change the tone a little bit. You've got 8 candidates tonight who are going to be here, not the entire field, but a good chunk, and they're looking for that breakout moment, some opportunity to change the game a little bit, to get enough chatter, not just about their performance, but also hopefully they believe. Then will follow donors and supporters, which they need to make the next debate stage a month from now. But there are a lot of political pundits who look at what's going on here tonight, as you pointed out. Former president not going to be in attendance, and in that respect, it's a fight for second place here. The matchup in Milwaukee certain to catapult the presidential race to a new level, but some of the spectacle missing, with Donald Trump choosing not to attend. Pointing to a new poll showing most Republicans, 74%, say they would support him in a general election. Trump's surrogate, Carrie Lake, says there's no need for Trump to take part.
Real Clear Politics shows him up 40 points. This is almost an unheard of advantage. He's already done the job. He's proven himself.
At the same time, never seen someone indicted 4 times. How much does that play into it?
Actually, I've noticed that every time he's indicted, his poll numbers go up.
Meanwhile, many see it as a better chance to introduce themselves. An opportunity, says former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. But the one-time U.S. attorney also wants to hold Trump, there or not, accountable.
I'm convinced we can't win with Donald Trump, and that's the whole purpose of this debate, is who's the right alternative that can lead our party.
A sentiment sure to be echoed by another former prosecutor, Chris Christie.
The American people want to see is, what's your plan for the future? Are you strong enough to be able to implement them?
All the expected fighting, though, is also a worry for the party, aware in the end they'll have to coalesce or risk the White House.
We recognize that Democrats, time and time again, they have their disagreements behind closed doors, but they come together, they unite, and they win. And so as a Republican Party, I think next year we're looking forward, hopefully better than ever before, coming together.
In the meantime, though, there is another big question tonight, and that's just how much attention will follow these candidates when it comes to their performance. Keep in mind, you've got former President Trump trying to push viewers over to watch his interview with former Fox host Tucker Carlson, and then tomorrow he'll be in Atlanta, turning himself in for arrest to authorities there for that fourth indictment. All of that draws away a lot of the attention that you typically give to a debate in the next 24, 48 hours afterward. Amira?
And Scott, I'm sure there's very good reason they placed this debate in Wisconsin. Just talk about the importance of the setting here.
Yeah, there's always a reason. It's very choreographed, very plotted out, very planned, because they want to get maximum impact out of every event. In this case, Wisconsin is a true swing state. 4 of the last 6 presidential elections you saw decided by less than 1%. In 2016, Trump territory for sure, but then in 2020 flipped over to Joe Biden. The convention is going to be here for Republicans next year. They really want to plant a flag and say this is territory we believe we can win back.
Lots of eyes will be tuning in tonight. Primetime. Scott, thank you so much. Scott Thielman out of Milwaukee. As Scott mentioned, Trump getting his own primetime play tonight, revealing earlier today that the interview would kick off at the same time as that Fox News debate, promising, quote, that sparks will fly. Trump also posting about his plan to turn himself into authorities over the Georgia election interference case, saying he will, quote, proudly be arrested tomorrow afternoon. Meantime, Trump's former campaign lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, in Atlanta and officially having surrendered on charges of his own involvement in that sweeping indictment after agreeing to a $150,000 bail. Giuliani spoke to reporters today.
I'm being prosecuted for defending an American citizen who I do as a lawyer, and 5 other lawyers are indicted. That should tell you right away that this is an assault on our Constitution.
And Giuliani faces 13 counts in this case, including 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer and 3 counts of false statements and writing. Several more defendants charged in Georgia in that sweeping indictment have also turned themselves in ahead of a Friday deadline to surrender voluntarily, bringing the total now to 7 of the 19 defendants having surrendered as of today. A witness against Trump in the classified documents case has changed his testimony. That's according to the DOJ. Special counsel Jack Smith says the witness, a Mar-a-Lago IT worker, provided new information after dropping a lawyer paid by a Trump PAC and hiring a new one. Smith's claims reiterate that the DOJ's concern over possible conflicts of interest prevail. A small business jet owned by Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin crashed in Russia today, killing all 10 on board, 3 crew members, 7 passengers. Prigozhin was on the passenger list, but it is unclear if he was on the plane. Russia's state media is reporting he was. He had been largely silent since he led a failed coup attempt against Vladimir Putin in late June, although he posted a video on Monday regarding a more free Africa. Here's President Biden commenting on the situation today.
I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised. There's not much that happens when Russia is not behind, but I don't know enough to know the answer.
And in South Carolina, a stunning reversal on abortion. The state Supreme Court reinstated a previously blocked law that puts a strict ban on the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy. The same court earlier this year had struck down a similar law, but Republican lawmakers have since replaced the lone woman on the bench with another man. Abortion providers are likely to challenge the law again. Tonight, an increase in cases of COVID-19 is bringing warnings to high-risk Americans, including the elderly and the immunocompromised. While the uptick is nothing close to what we saw in previous summers, it is causing some places to change their policies on masking, as national correspondent Christine Frizzell reports.
As summertime winds down, new COVID restrictions in some regions are ramping up.
There was a memo sent out not long ago from Scott, from the CEO, about starting to possibly wear masks again.
Mask mandates back in some hospitals. The movie studio Lionsgate reinstating its mask mandate for some Santa Monica office workers. The policy also returning to some college campuses. In an announcement on its Facebook page, Morris Brown College in Atlanta posted, effective immediately, it's reinstated its COVID-19 mask mandate. That met with a swift reaction from Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling it COVID hysteria, adding, "We will not comply." A spike in COVID cases prompting pandemic deja vu, including a shortage of COVID tests in some pharmacies. There's also been a substantial increase in new hospital admissions in states seen in red on this map. The new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention tweeting this photo of her speaking to a room filled with masked employees. And a reminder, not all masks are created equal.
A cloth mask may help you rob a bank because it hides your identity, but it's worthless as a mask. These surgical masks, those light blue ones usually, they offer a little bit of protection.
Dr. William Schaffner reminding people the N95 masks are still the best.
They did a few years ago. Mask and other mandates are sort of fanning the flames of debate. We expect this to be a political issue as the 2024 presidential campaign heats up. Amira?
Here we are talking about masking again. And Christine, what is the CDC saying about this?
Yeah, remember, a lot of businesses use that CDC guidance to really influence their decisions. The CDC says it's monitoring the new variant, but so far hasn't changed its guidance. The warnings, however, are focusing on sort of what we could see in the upcoming months, which they call a triple threat. That's COVID, the flu, and RSV. All three viruses, by the way, we now have vaccinations for.
Wow. All right. More to come on that. Christine Frizzau in D.C. for us. Thank you so much. And coming up, Caribbean islands are getting swamped with rain and wind from Tropical Storm Franklin. How it could impact the U.S. over the next few days. Then, with hybrid and remote work now commonplace, new research reveals how Americans really feel about alternative work arrangements. And counties in the Northwest are pushing wildfire preparedness as the region battles several fires. The 3 steps they say you can take to save lives. Right now, Tropical Storm Franklin is drenching the Dominican Republic and Haiti with heavy rain, flooding, and mudslides. At least 1 person has died after being swept away in the floodwaters. Some areas there could get up to 16 inches of rain. The storm could become a hurricane this weekend and send dangerous high surf and rip currents to the east coast of the U.S. And we'll continue watching Franklin for all the latest developments there. Mortgage demand from home buyers has dropped to its lowest level in 28 years. It comes as mortgage interest rates hit their highest level in 23 years. Total mortgage application volume fell 4.2% last week when compared to the week before, and that's according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. Potential buyers are facing not only high interest rates and high prices, but also extremely low supply. The Justice Department says they have charged 371 people criminally in its latest nationwide crackdown on COVID-19 fraud. DOJ officials say the offenses were related to the theft of more than $836 million in COVID aid. The federal sweep was conducted from May through July of this year. The department also announced the launch of 2 additional COVID fraud strike forces, one based in Colorado, the other in New Jersey. 3 strike forces were launched in September of last year in California, Florida, and Maryland. The FAA will distribute $121 million to airports all across the country to upgrade runways and taxiways, all in an effort to decrease the number of close calls near plane collisions. A preliminary FAA report revealed this week by the New York Times says there were at least 46 close calls involving commercial airlines last month alone. The FAA sent out another $100 million to airports back in May. Opening statements began today in the last trial over a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. 3 men pleaded not guilty to charges of providing material support for terrorist acts and illegally possessing firearms. A prosecutor said today they considered themselves the new founding fathers and wanted to start a civil war. Defense attorneys argued prosecutors were cherry-picking evidence. New Jersey is cracking down on gun trafficking. Governor Phil Murphy signed a law a few hours ago creating a strict penalty for trafficking if the gun is used in a crime and causes death or bodily harm. Murphy has prioritized gun reform in his second term. He said the goal of the new legislation is to, quote, crush the iron pipeline. Meanwhile, in Baltimore, Maryland, recent numbers show auto thefts on the rise. Cars there are stolen at a rate of more than once every hour, every single day. And many of the thieves are juveniles. It's not just Baltimore, by the way. A car theft across the country is up in 2023, and that's according to the National Insurance Crime Bureau, which says more than 1 million cars have been stolen this year, a 17% rise year over year. The Minnesota Supreme Court now has its first Black Chief Justice. Today, Governor Tim Walz promoted Natalie Hudson, who's been an Associate Justice since 2015. Hudson will lead the court when the current Chief Justice retires in October. Workplaces have changed since the pandemic, and new research shows the vast majority of American workers, 89%, support a 4-day work week, remote work or hybrid work. 81% of the full-time workforce supports a 4-day week, 64% prefer remote work, and 68% prefer hybrid work. The Bankrate study finds flexible work is more popular among women and younger generations. The CDC is warning people to not kiss or cuddle pet turtles because of a salmonella outbreak. At least 26 people in 11 states have gotten sick with infections connected to small turtles, if you can believe it. Selling turtles with shells under 4 inches long is banned due to their risk of illness, but they can still be found. The CDC says to only buy turtles from reputable pet stores. In an unusual move, Hollywood studios have publicly released their latest contract proposal as the writers' strike continues. The August 11th offer addresses compensation, AI, and streaming business transparency, but the writers' union says the proposal does not sufficiently protect them. Many productions are paused due to the writers' and actors' strike. The suspect in the 2021 Boulder King super shooting is competent to stand trial. The Department of Human Services ruled today Ahmed Al-Alawi Alisa is able to participate in his defense. Alisa shot and killed 10 people, including customers, workers, and a police officer. He surrendered after getting shot and wounded by another officer. A trial date has not yet been set. A university professor is sharing an important lesson with his students after they rallied to save his life, and in doing, possibly others as well. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares his story of gratitude.
Hey there, everybody. This professor now returning to campus this year with a whole new understanding of how organ donors save lives. His name is Dr. Chuck Elliott, and he's the department chair of communications at Ohio's Cedarville University. Late last year, Chuck was told he needed a kidney donor for transplant surgery to survive. It was then that a communications colleague put out the call to students for help.
I said to the students, I need a group of people to do something amazing. I'm not going to tell you what it is until you commit, but I need you to do something amazing.
That group launched a social media campaign called Deep Calls for Life.
Basically, the idea is that we're going to educate people on how to be a donor and why.
Within weeks, they had more than 500 people who joined at Deep Calls for Life in prayer, and many also signed up to be tested to become a donor. Guess what?
The awesome thing is that my kidney is now functioning with flying colors inside Chuck's body.
Pastor John Enright, who just happens to be Chuck's own brother-in-law, turned out to be a perfect match for a transplant surgery that took place just weeks ago.
It was truly miraculous because the kidney started working almost immediately. And I had a fully functioning kidney for the first time in 2 decades.
Chuck is now back teaching at Cedarville, sharing a lesson he says only a recipient can.
I have learned a new meaning of gratitude, because how can you say thank you enough to the person that has done so much to save your life? And so I feel like I'm doubly redeemed. God has redeemed my soul, but also my life.
To become an organ donor, living or deceased, you can sign up online and be sure to tell your family your wishes. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
All right, Liz, thank you. Coming up, officials are urging people in the Northwest to prepare as the region battles several fires. The 3 steps they say can save lives. We'll be right back. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
It's time to demand that our leaders side with us and law enforcement and not criminals.
Retailers are struggling to make a profit because of thieves. Dick's Sporting Goods says in its second quarter, sales went up almost 4%. But that didn't matter because its profits are down 23%. The reason? Retail theft.
This is a huge issue across California. We're looking at billions of dollars of losses due to thefts. We are looking at retailers that are closing. Products are getting more expensive. We're at a crisis level.
Assemblyman Vince Fong, who represents the 32nd District in California, says because of state laws, criminals are now getting away with the theft.
Along SR2 and Gold Bar, Mark Klein has a deep appreciation for the view where nearly a year ago, flames from the Bolt Creek fire overtook these mountains.
Whoever thought we would be dealing with a wildfire in a Pacific Northwest rainforest?
He remembers being notified to have a kit ready in case of an evacuation order. Now, the Snohomish County Department of Emergency Management wants people to know what to do in case of another wildfire. The Ready, Set, Go campaign simplifies evacuation messages into 3 categories that officials say could save lives. The first phase urges you to have an evacuation plan and a go kit. Level 2 is for people who need more time to evacuate to do so, like those with disabilities. And the last phase is for everyone to leave when your home is in immediate danger.
A billboard can be seen on I-71 welcoming soccer superstar Lionel Messi to the Queen City. Since signing with Inter Miami in July, the buzz over a potential stop in Cincinnati has been growing, especially after his strong start in the league, scoring 10 goals in his first 7 matches for his new squad.
Well, we're certainly excited for Cincinnati to have the chance to host maybe the greatest soccer player of all time, Lionel Messi.
Both teams are playing at the top of their games heading into the semifinal matchup, battling for the U.S. Open Cup.
And it should be a great match. We're in first place, the best team right now, 2/3 of the way in the season, playing against the best players, so it's going to be a great matchup.
Coming up, India has made history as the first country to land a spacecraft on a certain part of the moon. We'll tell you more on the other side. India has landed a spacecraft near the moon's south pole. India's space agency says a lander with a rover inside successfully touched down on the lunar surface today. This is the first time a country has touched down near the south pole region of the moon. India is just the 4th country to achieve a moon landing, alongside the U.S., China, and the former Soviet Union. That's all for now. Join us again tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. Check your local listings. I'm Amira David. Thanks for watching.